No, I think you're right. I think basically nonlinear thinking and your physics background, I think we need Brownian motion. Without that, we will not be able, and we have it innately within our country. We have it in the regards. We have it in how people do things. We also have it in our government and really a democracy. And it is unlike some of the other countries you mentioned, Nick. And I think that really is our strength. And then the trick lies in promoting these 20,000 different ideas or 2 million different ideas, but not necessarily, making them walk like a machine along an assembly line, but still getting value out of it. There is something here. And we're at the cusp of the new century, there is something here.
So to this point, I heard this last year. It's a Gallup poll survey. It's a frightening thought for the United States. They surveyed the top 1,000 wealth-generating ideas over the past 20, 25 years in the United States. Mm-hmm. Half of them, 500 of them, came from Indians that migrated from India to the United States because there was maybe too much Brownian motion here. They didn't have an infrastructure or they didn't have a skill base to literally get their idea hatched. Now you think about that. I mean, so we're all saying the same thing, right? The environment is right here. The native capabilities of the individuals are clearly right here. But without a little discipline, without a little structure, I mean, that new Meson just gets wiped away and nobody ever sees it, from a Brownian motion perspective. And it could be a very important element, in the final analysis. So I don't know what the answer is, Arun, but somehow you are kind of moving this way, right? Yes. Somehow it continues, but you are making some sense out of this whole thing. Maybe the more sense you make out of it, the faster it moves.
That's right.
Let me put it as a question, and Lemuel, you be the first to answer it. This is what you just raised as a question. Is we need, let me use the word, more coordination amongst people. Now, the model we have to get coordination is so much a top-down model by authority. You're looking, as you said, in the open source and open. There must be another way to coordinate things, and they're not that chaotic, but yet they're independent. They're seeds of ideas. They move. Okay.
Just two words come to my mind when you pick it up, which is orchestrated chaos. If we can come up with an orchestrated chaos whereby we can drive energy out of it, it might be interesting.
So,
sorry, I didn't mean to.
Go ahead. No, you go.
I think this is a bit unorthodox for the Chief Innovation Officer to say this, but there is a limit to innovation. And we have to recognize that innovation is not always appropriate. When I get into an airplane, the last thing I want to see is an innovative pilot. I want to see a pilot who's very disciplined, who follows the procedures, who knows how to fly, is manifesting different competency. And this goes back to this paradoxical nature of mastering this within the enterprise, is that we need both, and they have to be equal. It's not a matter of a little bit of this and a little bit of that, it's a lot of both. And I think the West has suffered from too much of the discipline, the process, and the accountants and all that kind of focus. That's what's killed so much of the innovation and why India has had such a resurgence because of this creativity. The thing has to come into balance, and both can learn from each other how to get those two, but without the two together, we're not going to get the innovations we're looking for.
I mean, it's pretty obvious that innovation which doesn't have any economic benefit or productivity gains is not a sustainable innovation. So, fact of the matter, I think Arun is trying to drive over here is what is going to be a sustainable business model supporting the kind of innovation that's required for us in the new world that we are in. And my submission is, we have seen in the past people, particularly in the Indian context now, I'm more focused on the Indian context, that India and they evolve the business models which fit the local needs. I mean, take NDTV, classic example of how the whole business model, if you try to map it onto the way it has been done in the West, it would absolutely fail. The kind of realization that you get at for milk that is distributed to the end user, and the realization that a farmer makes, the gap is very low. I mean, that's a beautiful model which has come about, and it's a sustainable model. Same is true of the local in Mumbai. Since we are in Mumbai, we can talk about these dabbawalas. So I'm saying that the models will evolve as we go, and I think our job is to see that these innovations which come about, which are sustainable, how do we apply technology onto them to see how that can be scaled up in other parts also. And that's what's the fun part, actually.
I agree with everything that you just said and all of you have said. And I think there may be two different thoughts here, though. There's something that's good for India, and you're the experts here, not me. And there's a lot of market here, and there's a lot of opportunity, and there'll be a lot of innovation. But then you have to kind of think about when does India lead the world? I mean, so when does India kind of start to step up as a globally integrated, enterprise country and become part of the globally integrated enterprise economy? And therefore, I want to go back to Arun's point. There are other approaches to kind of helping create order out of what seems to be discoordinated, chaotic events. One of the studies we did last year about the enterprise of the 21st century literally was with respect to MMOGs, massively multiplayer online games. There's a different thought here. These are self-forming, self-organizing organizations. They are self-disciplined, they are self-tasking, they are self-evaluating, and there is a powerful metaphor already existing in the world for, in an unstructured environment, you come together for a specific task to create a specific value, and then you move on. And then if you do well, you're invited back, and if you do poorly, you're not invited back. I don't mean that to be totally philosophical. There may be something like that does work, inside this country to kind of create, without a heavy-handedness, without an over-the-top, approach, a very enabling environment to allow all this creativity to occur, but you get it to move a lot faster, in a given direction.
I agree completely, Nicholas, because what's driving innovation is first of all, it's very hard to predict. However, the game of innovation, and if you bring the accountants in, is a game to be played and measured on the options that you take on any bet. And we have to, as an organization, kind of decide, okay, this bet is worth it, or kind of you close the bet and move on. But fact of the matter remains that you have to continuously be on that. And if you find somebody else who is doing better than you, then the idea is to acquire the asset and make it part of you to scale up. But coming to your other point of how Indian companies will kind of address the concept of innovation going out into the world, my belief is in this, most of us organizations have to reinvent ourselves, because we still probably think as management, because we like it very structured, that let innovation be in a more structured, more controlled way where you measure it. Maybe we need to let it go. Maybe we need to say to the financial community out there also, saying, hey, we're going to spend this much money. We don't know what's going to be written on it. We don't ask us any questions on it, and let them worry about what the outcome is. Maybe that's an approach.
Very good. Can I ask any questions from the floor here? Yes, there's one there. Do you have a mic? Would you just stand up and I'll repeat it?
I agree completely that a lot of U.S. companies are so introspective and so caught up in the way their processes are now, that to innovate, if you pay attention to your customers and really do the user research and focus on, of course, I'm coming from a user experience design background, so that's where, I think that's a basis for getting support for innovation, because if you don't do it, your customers will go elsewhere. Because the most successful companies now are focusing on that. Look at something as simple as, and I don't know if it's as big in India, but Netflix. If you're from the U.S., you're familiar with that. Yeah. For years, I know many people, and you probably did yourself, complained about renting videos and having to take it back. That whole experience was annoying. So here was a company that simply took a very simple problem and fixed it, just like your Erie Canal example too. So you focus on the problem, and you'll have support for innovation. So maybe if you just form it in that way, you get much more support within a company, that this is how we're going to compete in the future.